friends, it's Christy. I'm so excited to be back with you on the lawnfawn YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the new I Heart Pandas and Sent with Love. So I've stamped the images I'll be using on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White Cardstock with jet black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm starting with my pandas, and they are so super easy to color because the black parts of their body are already stamped solid. So all that's left is to add a little bit of shading to the white parts of their body, and I'm going to go with some creamy tones. I'm using E40 and E41, and I'm sticking pretty close to the outside edge with both of those shades and letting the majority of the image stay white. That way that has the little bit of definition to it, but it doesn't look kind of dingy. And then I will grab my zero marker, the colorless blender, and just go over the transition between the E40 and the white to make sure that is nice and smooth. Then I'm going to bring in R00, R21, and R22, and I'll give these pandas some rosy cheeks. I did a little oval shape on their cheek right below the eye patches with the R22. And while I have those markers out, I will also color in the envelope. So I added my shading to that. Then I'll switch to the R21 and blend out the cheeks and start to blend out the envelope as well. Just making sure to break up the edge of that R22 and soften it into the midtone. And then I will also add a little bit of that R00 around the cheeks and blend out the rest of the envelope. And then for the heart seal, I'm going to go with red. I'll use R24 and R29. It's just a super little area, so just the two shades there. You could honestly get away with just one if you wanted to, but I like to have that little bit of dimension. So now I'm going to switch to some greens. I'm bringing in YG41, YG45, and G46. So I'm going to start with the G46 on my bamboo and kind of define each of the little sections, just doing like a backwards L shape down the right hand side and then at the bottom edge of each of those sections. And also placing a little bit of that G46 at the base of each of the leaves. And then I will begin to blend that out with the YG45. I really like these cooler toned greens. I don't reach for them a lot, and every time I do, I wonder why I don't use them more often because I think they are so pretty. And for some reason, to me, they just really seem to suit this time of year when it's after the holidays and it's later in winter, headed towards Valentine's Day. It just reminds me of like a minty, fresh kind of tone, especially once you add in that YG41, which is what I am doing right now. I just think it has that kind of cool and refreshing look to it before like the newer, more springtime greens that are a little bit more yellow toned. So now that my coloring is done, I will trim all of these images out with their matching dies. So next I need to die cut several different elements for my card, and I am starting with some spiffier speckles 6x6 paper. I'm going to tear out this kind of peachy sheet, and I'm going to die cut the envelope from Little Letter. And I'm going to fold that up for you guys so we can see how that fits together. So I'm going to grab my lawnfawn bone folder and just fold down 3 of those flaps. I'm going to do the 2 sides and the bottom edge. I'm going to leave the top flap standing straight up for today's card, but you definitely could fold that down if you want to have that close. So I'm just going to add a little bead of glue with that glue tube right along that stitching line on the 2 side flaps. And I'm just trying to use the smallest amount that I can, and then fold that bottom flap up and hold that down into place for a few seconds until that glue starts to set. Next, I'm going to take some plain white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut the letter from Little Letter. And I also want to die cut the largest of the fancy scalloped circle stackables. I was trying to do it out of one sheet of cardstock, but it was a little bit too small to fit both of these dies, so I just went ahead and found a scrap that was left over that I could die cut the letter from, and I ran both of these through my die cut machine as well. I did use a little bit of post-it tape to hold that letter die in place so that it wouldn't shift around in my die cutting machine, but it just peels off super easy. Any kind of low-tack tape is great for that. And then I'm going back to my spiffier speckles and tearing out another pink piece. And this time I'm going to die cut the stitched circle stackables, and that is the second largest in that die set. Then I'm going to switch to a different pattern paper pad. I'm going with the stripes and sprinkles and tearing out this kind of minty green polka dot. And I'll trim that down with the largest of the large stitch rectangle stackables. So we get that great stitching detail all along the outside edge. And then my last die cut element is the Scripty love word, and I am going to cut that out of some Guava cardstock, and I will cut that out 4 times. Now I'm ready to stamp my sentiment, and I'm going to use Henry's Build a Sentiment Love, and I'm going to do that directly onto the little letter using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And the phrase that I put together says, "Sending so much," and I'm going to stamp that down twice to make sure it is nice and bold. And then I'll pop that letter out and set that aside to dry. And I'll pop my card base in my MISTI. I'm using Guava cardstock and stamping it in the matching guava ink. And I put together another little phrase from Henry's Build a Sentiment Love. It says, "Happy Valentine's Day." I love that there's so many different phrases that you could put together though. So if you wanted to change this up, make it an anniversary card or something else, there's so many different options. And then the little panda, butterfly, and the tiny love letter are also from the I Heart Pandas stamp set. So now I'm ready to start assembling, and I'm going to take that green minty polka dot pattern paper and glue that to the front of my card base. It is an A2 standard size card, 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall. So I'll just smooth that down into place, and then I will take the Spiffier Speckles pink pattern paper, and I'm going to glue that to the center of my fancy scalloped circle stackable. So I'm just lining that up, making sure it's centered on there, and then gluing that down into place. And then I've added a bit of foam tape to the back of that to give it some dimension on the card. So I'll peel off those release papers and line that up on my card front. I always like to have one of the little holes kind of pointing toward the top, just so I know that it's even. But yeah, I'm going to line that up like a little bit high of center. And then I can bring in my elements. So I've got my little envelope and the letter that is going to be sticking out of it. I can go ahead and glue that into place right now. And I want that to be at a little bit of an angle just because I think it looks a little bit more whimsical that way. So I'm going to lay that in place. I'm not going to adhere it just yet. I want to kind of lay out my elements and make sure I have everything where I want it before I commit. So once I have my bamboo positioned, I will start to glue those down over on the left side of that focal panel. And I'm just lining up that first one and making sure I have that where I want it, making sure it's on there straight. And then I'll add the shorter one, and this one I'm going to place at just a little bit of an angle, just so it matches up with the angle of the envelope. And then I have that little letter, the envelope from the Sent with Love stamp set, and I'm going to glue that into the hands of both of the pandas. There also is a smaller letter in the I Heart Pandas stamp set that would also be cute in their hands, but I just thought it would be kind of fun to have this big letter that they're holding on together. And then I wanted to have a heart to match the heart that is on the one that they're holding. So I die cut both sizes that came with the little letter, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to use it as a seal or if I wanted it below the sentiment, and I ultimately decided to go with the smaller heart and to add that below the sentiment just because I felt like there was some empty space there that I wanted to fill up. So I'm going to add that, make sure that it's positioned correctly underneath those words, and then I can glue down my letter and just set that back in place. And then I'll glue my pandas right over top down at the bottom of that focal panel. And I think that looks so, so sweet. So to finish off that sentiment, I'm going to bring in those scripty love words and I'm going to layer them up just to make them a little bit thicker so that they have more of a presence on the card. So I'll just add a thin bead of glue all around the top of the first die cut, and then I'll layer the next one right over top. And I will keep repeating that process until I have all 4 of these stuck together. And once I have that glue on there, I like to just adjust them quickly and make sure that they're all lined up on top of each other. And then I will add glue to the bottom of the final die cut. And I will place that just below the focal panel. I'm going to have the top edge of the loop of the L and the V overlap the white part of the focal panel just to integrate them a little bit more together. Then to finish up this card, I added a sprinkling of clear sequins, and now I am filling in the centers with some Stardust stickles. I'm also adding some Stardust stickles to the die cut heart and the little heart on the envelope, and that is going to complete this one. So I'll lift that up so you can see all of the detail and give you another peek at the inside. I had so much fun playing with these adorable pandas. Again, I just love them so much. So if you enjoyed it too, please go ahead and hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.